Hello, everyone. It's 2026, and we are back with a brand new season of Vintage Club Conversations. This is our season 3, and I hope you have watched all the episodes of season 2 and had a blast. You can look forward to more deep dive conversations with global leaders on the changing landscape of sales, scaling GTM effectively, and the topic everyone wants to know more about today: operationalizing AI. Our first guest of this season is Vijayant Rai, Managing Director at Snowflake. Who's the best person to talk to start 2026 other than someone who's leading the edge in AI? He brings a rare cross industry perspective on what real transformation from legacy systems to modern data and AI platform looks like beneath the buzzwords. Welcome, Vijay.
Thank you, Manisha. Thanks for having me and wishing you and all your viewers a very, very happy new year. Happy 2026. But fantastic to be here on the show with you.
Vijayant Rai is the managing director of Snowflake India, where he leads one of the world's most influential data and AI platforms across some of the country's largest and most complex enterprises. He brings decades of experience in cloud, enterprise software, and digital transformation, and has a front row view into how data and AI are reshaping business today.
Happy New Year to you too, Vijayant. Vijayant, you have said before you can't have a real AI strategy without a real data strategy. So, for companies sitting on messy, siloed, or incomplete data, especially in regulated sectors, what does that journey actually look like? Where do they start, and what pitfalls should they expect?
Sure, Manisha. Great question, by the way. I mean, the key thing is that there is no AI strategy without a data strategy. And what that basically implies is that it's the data which you bring in for AI use which actually dictates the quality of AI as well. In the first place, most organizations, even now, I mean, if you look at traditional organizations in the country, financial services, manufacturing, retail, all those segments, they have a long history of being in operation for a period of time. There is systems, applications they have acquired. There's a whole lot of legacy data estates which are siloed. And what that means is that this data doesn't talk to each other. If you want to create a simple customer 360, it's a massive challenge. Thanks to data platforms like what we have here at Snowflake, what we try and do is basically help organizations break those data silos, bring all the data into one place so you can get more insights out of it, do better analytics, and now of course use that same trusted governed data for AI outcomes. So that's the sort of challenge that most organizations still grapple with. I mean, to give you an estimate, probably 80-85% of traditional companies still have most of the data on prem even at this point of time.
Wow.
So there's a lot of potential to sort of get value out of the data. But then the second thing which happened, which you could probably say was a generational change when generative AI happened a couple of years ago. What that did is basically unlocked unstructured data. So far we were dealing with structured data, semi-structured data. With generative AI, came the possibility that you could now actually bring in all of that unstructured data, videos and PDFs and all of that into the equation, which basically gave organizations a whole new plethora of use cases they can now unlock in terms of value. So what happens is basically the foundation needs to be strong, and that's where data as a strategy has to be very clear for organizations. We believe there are probably three tenets to having a very strong data foundation. The first is every organization needs to have a strong data strategy. And what I mean by that is essentially what we talked about. A very clear view of how you want to break your data silos, a view on governance. The second piece is how do organizations create a data driven culture? And that's about people and processes. And usually it's top down. And the third piece is then harnessing the power of the data which you have, where you then even start looking at monetizing the data, creating data ecosystems for sharing data and those sort of things. So those are the three tenets of a strong data strategy, which I would profess most organizations to look at as they sort of look at taking advantage of AI.
Absolutely. You spoke about 2 years. It's just been 3 years, 2 months, I think now, when ChatGPT was launched. And the entire AI space has been growing at a crazy velocity, right? And you have worked closely with leaders navigating both velocity and compliance. How are GTM and product teams in high stakes industries, especially, financial services and public sector, actually balancing speed with governance? What does responsible innovation really look like?
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in the context of India, Manisha. You look at India as a country which is growing at a pace we are close to 7% GDP growth, massive amount of data being generated across different industries, right? We are moving towards becoming a very, very big data-driven economy. And then you look at what, say, for example, the startup ecosystem is doing in India, right? More than 120 odd unicorns now. All of them are data driven, they are AI driven as well now. What all that is also doing is creating a huge amount of data, right? As we scale and grow, these organizations, including the traditional organizations, they're very quickly now moving towards becoming almost IT organizations, because they're working and running their businesses on top of massive data estates. So there is this challenge of governance. There's a challenge of regulation as well. I guess it's incumbent on vendors like us and others in the industry to ensure that we provide the right kind of controls, so data can be sort of managed and secured and trusted for outcomes which you want to then apply, which could be AI on top of it. So extremely important that, and that's what we do a lot, is we bring in the best practices we've learned in the world. So for example, GDPR, it's something Snowflake has been catering to for many years. What we try and do as a fully managed platform now is bring all those best practices learnings into what we're doing in India, for example, as people are looking at privacy laws and all of those areas as well. So the interesting piece is there's this huge amount of data being generated, but the good news is that there are controls and there are mechanisms to ensure that you can basically be compliant as well. You mentioned financial services, and they're sort of front of this because they're dealing with money, they're dealing with people's trust. So absolutely crucial that they have that in place. And I can tell you, I mean, we're working with a number of them. They essentially are going in for the best possible technologies for securing data, for governing data, for managing data in different forms and shapes, for ensuring that there is compliance when it comes to privacy norms, etc. So the good news is that the tech does exist. The other aspect of challenges will remain. Tech is available to bad actors as well. So it is still always going to be in conjunction with people and processes, and that tech will actually then deliver helping compliance in those areas. So it's going to be a combination of that, but technology is the same AI we talked about is being now used at scale to help provide protection as well.
Interesting. In that case, you mentioned incumbent, right? Snowflake and other companies. Do you see yourself as a incumbent or a startup? Because Snowflake has a front seat to how companies build AI into their core motion, not just as a feature, but as a foundation. So, other than incumbent versus startup, what patterns are you seeing in how AI is changing the way companies sell, learn from users, and tighten their product market fit loops?
That's a very interesting point you make. We just came out with our quarterly results. In our quarterly results, we always talk about the number of customers we have. It's about 12,600 customers who has globally, and including a very large number of the global 2,000. But the interesting number which comes in that slide every time, as we're seeing the past few quarters, is the number of customers who have adopted AI. And it's about 7,300. So it's more than 50% of the base is already on AI. If you look back 2 years ago at the same slides, and the numbers would be very different. It's just also showing that organizations are moving from doing POCs on generative AI and AI and bringing that into their organization to now moving to production as well. So what we are seeing very clearly, as a platform provider which provides data and AI solutions, is that building blocks are there in place. They're now bringing in big measures. It's important that it's part of their architecture as they look at building their businesses, that AI is a fundamental building block of whatever they're doing now, because eventually customer experience, employee experience, everything is being impacted with AI. Largely what we are seeing even in Snowflake, and likewise right across the organization, may it be for our IT organization or may it be for the support organization, there's a massive infusion of AI right across there. Obviously has to be done in the right way and ensure that it's part of the overall plan which is out there. Product, like you mentioned, again, there's a massive play of AI there. We just launched last quarter Snowflake Intelligence, which is our offering on generative AI on top of the Snowflake platform. So every customer of Snowflake now has access to Snowflake Intelligence, where you can talk to your data, as we call it, in natural language and get insights from that data to run your business, to engage with your customers, and all those aspects.
It's really interesting to see that even at Snowflake scale, 50% adoption of AI is pretty huge.
And by the way, this 7,300 customers we talked about who are using AI, the key thing is the speed at which this adoption has happened. It's just unbelievable. Largely from a company which is working in this space, we are seeing a lot of very clear ideas coming through. We've gone through that phase, like I mentioned, of POCs now getting down to production in most areas. In my mind, the impact of AI probably, we'll start seeing at scale in the next couple of years, as it sort of plays out in different organizations. The first obvious benefits are things like productivity gains, etc., which I think every organization is already taking advantage of. Organizations which are doing it for right from employee chatbots to coding and everything else. But then, yeah, the benefits of AI are already surfacing up.
Yeah, I think 23, 24 were the years of POCs. 25 was basically the year of productionizing AI. Now 2026 is going to be operationalizing AI because adoption is always the key when it comes to AI. Selling AI products isn't a solo sport, especially in a complex enterprise environment. How do you think about ecosystems and partner strategy? What have you seen work when the buyer doesn't yet have the in house expertise but still wants to move fast?
The partner part of it is absolutely crucial. Nothing works in isolation here. Today, Snowflake, for example, we have this whole wonderful set of ISV partners who build on top of the Snowflake platform. So you have organizations which, for example, work with utility companies, looking at that data, doing analytics on top of it, giving it back so that utility companies can do better grid planning and those sort of things. You have marketing organizations who are using Snowflake in the background for CDP applications. So essentially, what we're seeing is that the ecosystem play on top of what we have as a platform is immense. And again, it'll just get bigger and bigger with the AI ecosystems which organizations are building as such. So that said, the other aspect on which we look at from a partnership perspective is partners who actually help customers to the point you make do this journey of AI. It's not a simple one. I can tell you that much. In a lot of organization, it requires a lot of changes which are on the people side, the process side, the culture side of things. So you have this fantastic ecosystem of SI partners we have, and they're essentially advisory companies like KPMG, PwC, etc., Deloitte, or it could be global SI partners and local SI partners as well, who essentially are trained, who are certified by Snowflake, and organization like us, who work with customers and help them navigate this change, saying that okay, if you have to bring an AI into your architecture, what's the best way to do it? What kind of skill sets do you require? What kind of best practices do you need to basically apply basis maybe the experience the SI company has had in a similar customer somewhere else. So the partner ecosystem is going to play a massive hand in this whole thing in terms of getting AI to scale in organizations.
Interesting. No, I think with all the, partner ecosystem, data strategy, everything coming together, it feels like AI is everywhere, but also still finding its place, right? Like, do you think, are we heading towards a future where AI becomes invisible and deeply embedded in how every workflow runs? Or we are still figuring out what operationalizing AI really means for the atom?
If you look at the digital native organization, they're already doing all of that because they're born in the cloud. For them, AI is just a extension of the data platforms they're working with and already have in place. So it's much easier there. You look at traditional organizations, they're taking steps towards bringing in the benefits of AI. At the same time, you have to look at, and we talked about it earlier in the conversation, you have to look at things like governance, security, all of those aspects as well. So I would believe AI in an invisible sense is already all around us. I mean, we look at apps which we're working with, etc. There's a lot of AI already infused there. The traditional organizations also are catching up very quickly. I can tell you, I mean, we're working with some of them. The advantage they sit on, Manisha, is they're sitting on massive data sets already, which are good data sets curated over, in some cases, in 5 decades, 6 decades of information. It could be, if you're in manufacturing, information on the overall business, on machinery and everything else. And if you're in retail, consumer behavior, for example. So there's a lot of goodness in that sense where they have data estates. The challenge, of course, remains on how much do you actually want to use and what measure do you want to bring in so that you can then get AI on top of it. I think it's going to be an evolutionary process in a lot of ways. I know we are all worried as well, looking at what's going to happen. Is AI going to be doing its own thing, and what could happen with the whole pieces? But I can tell you, tech companies are bringing in the right kind of measures and controls to make sure that the human in the loop will always be the case. The question of how do you infuse it into different businesses, we are seeing it, but again, different industries are in different levels of evolution.
Totally. I think human in the loop may be converted to expert in the loop because you don't need just a normal human in the loop. Now you will need an expert in the loop to actually verify what AI is doing because it's already at a level where a normal human being would operate. And I think, in 2026, we are going to see a lot of adoption of agents. We have been talking about assistive nature and then a lot of, agentic nature, but I think 2026 is going to be a year of agents.
100%. So it's essentially, the way we look at it is, AI is going to look at aspects of what and how, and humans will still be doing the why and what if part of it. So a whole lot of productivity gain comes if the how and what, which is where the load is, And that's where AI stands out because it works at scale. For example, you're looking at court cases, and we have a customer who's actually working on some of those POCs. They're bringing in millions of court documents, which are judgments, etc. And then you ask the AI to look at a certain pattern for fraud management. Is there a witness, across different courts in Surat and Ahmedabad and Mumbai, just to find out if you have a bad actor there, etc. It does a brilliant job. Something which humans would take a very long time to do as you sift through millions of documents. So those sort of things are easily tackled right now, and organizations are already trying to get benefit. Of course, what organizations also look at, Manisha, things like where do we start with AI? One, it has to look at a scale use case, so it's worth it because AI is not inexpensive. You need to pay for a lot of things in terms of compute and storage on that. So we are looking at organizations where they're prioritizing basis, where they're seeing scale and the problem it's solving. Is it solving a problem for customer experience or service and those sort of aspects?
Yeah, it's always effort versus impact, right? The ROI has to be there. Well,
Yes.
now we have covered the big theme, Vijayan. I would love to switch gears for a moment. Let's do a quick rapid fire to get to the leadership tips, tricks, and instincts honed from your experience, which usually doesn't make it into the formal answers. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go for it.
A piece of advice you give your teams far more often than you expected to.
Adopt AI.
Biggest myth about AI that you wish more leaders would stop repeating.
Basically, it's going to take away too many jobs. I don't think so. It'll just add to what we have.
One trait you look for instantly when hiring sales or GTM leaders.
Essentially, anybody who doesn't carry a baggage, who's willing to embrace the future. So I'm looking at future ready leaders who are already embracing what we have here, especially on the tech side.
One thing larger enterprises do better than startups that people don't give them enough credit for.
Great question. Honestly, I think
I touched a nerve.
great question. I think it is basically traditional enterprises do a far better job of understanding their customer.
Most important thing.
Yes.
A book, podcast, or thinker who's influenced your leadership style recently.
Recently, that's a tough one. My all time favorite I fall back upon is folks like Nelson Mandela, just from a very high level of visionary leadership.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Vijayan, for being a part of this podcast. I have a few takeaways. I'm sure our viewers will have more. I think AI needs to be part of a company's architecture. More than 50% of Snowflake's client portfolio are on AI adoption. So you don't really have a reason not to do it. And I think to leverage AI to its maximum potential, you really need to have a data strategy and partner strategy so everything comes together in place. Thanks again, Vijayan, for sharing your insights. Any last piece of advice you want to leave our viewers with?
Thanks for having me, Manisha. Wonderful conversation as we start this year. And like I mentioned right up front, I'm wishing everyone a very happy new year. A year where, like you mentioned, AI will come to the fore for all the good reasons. And we look forward to that.
Thanks.